perhaps it should be titled Money in a Continuous World, or Money in the World of Continuous Delivery. One of the problems we face now is that our technology and our processes allow us to work, well, continuously. You know, we keep churning out this stuff, and we're updating our systems, you know, many times a day. But our management models are still stuck in the project era, and the way we approach management as a whole, and particularly around funding, is still rooted in the idea of projects and the idea that projects come to an end. And you know, in real business, things that come to an end are failures. We want things to continue and go on. You don't want, you hear, who was it, who's gone bust lately? You know, Pret-a-Manger is on the verge of going bust. We really don't want Pret to go bust, but you know, if they were to finish their project and close, that would be a success in project terms. So I think that the solutions, we need to reform the way we look at money and funding of work. So I've got some ideas on this. One of the things we need to recognize is that, as well as continuous and agile and the other buzzwords, there's a big one called digital. And I almost feel when I say that to an audience such as this, that you've all started to glaze over already. Because you know what, we all know that those analog computers never caught on, and the steam-based stuff was never popular. Me and you, we've been living with digital computers and digital systems of various kinds for, well, in my case, decades. You know, there is no other sort. And I think we often fail to appreciate just what this digital revolution is about, because we are so steeped to it, we are so close to it. When we hear other people use the word digital, we go, they should save their breath. But actually, when people from outside the technology domain, from people from outside of, you know, us, the coders, the testers, the DevOps, all of us, when they use the word digital, what they're actually saying is their world now looks like our world. Their world of accounting, marketing, human resources, logistics, whatever it is, has now been changed and looks like our world. And for me, very much so, the agile processes are not processes of software development. They are processes that accompany digital technology. It's just they started in software development because software developers had them first. And now, as these processes seep out, we need to look at reforming other aspects of the way we organize our companies and the way we manage them. What it boils down to it is that today's businesses, or at least the growth businesses, are digital businesses. They are businesses that are rooted in their technology. You know, all the companies I've put on screen, and I'm sure people on this call know of many other businesses. What, you know, look at these companies. Is Uber just a taxi company? No, Uber's a technology company, but it's also a taxi company. And, you know, Monzo, is Monzo just another bank? If Monzo was just another bank, why would we make a fuss about them? There's something inherent in the fact that these businesses are digital, and digital businesses have products. The CEO of Uber does not get up at one morning and say, you know what? We've developed a taxi app. We've developed a dispatch system. We've developed a billing system. We do not need to develop anymore. We can close up. We can get rid of those expensive developers. The same for Amazon or Netflix or any of these companies. You know, if they said it was a project and finished it, they'd be our business. Somebody else would steal their market. So we live in this age of digital business, and digital businesses are growth businesses. And digital businesses have products, and products are continuous. Projects come to an end, but we're living in this continuous age now. So I like to call this continuous digital. And in fact, I wrote a book by that title, which is how I came up with the idea. And the fundamental idea here is that the business is technology and the technology is the business. You cannot separate Uber into an IT department and a taxi department. You cannot separate Monzo into back office and front office. Their front office is their back office. Since when did banks expose their back ends to people? The two are entwined, and we do this continuously. So we need continuous money. We can't keep running our organizations, running our teams on a continuous model if we constantly keep sending them back to say, we've got a project we think we're going to need, we think we know what we need, we think we know what we're going to do, please give us so much money and we promise to be finished in 6 months. We need a different model. We need continuous money, because continuous money, we want continuous revenue, and to have continuous revenue, we need continuous products. We need to be constantly updating our products, keep them ahead of the competition, adding new capabilities, enlarging our markets, etc., etc. And products are made by teams. So teams cost money, and we need continuous money to keep the teams funded. Yes, we need our teams and our products to keep advancing. Teams and products are pretty much synonymous these days. But because we still base our funding models on the project model, people still think there's an end date. They think this money will be spent by this date, and on that date we'll have everything. And they allocate money to things. And this mismatch is corrosive. In our world of continuous delivery, continuous improvement, continuous everything, to talk about end dates is wrong, and it corrodes us. We get into all sorts of difficulties. Successful products don't end. We don't want our products to end. We want them to keep advancing. So we need to get away from this project funding model where we're trying to put a square peg into a round hole. So we need a new life cycle model, we need a new funding model, and we need a model that is continuous, that is going on and on and on. So it begins like this. You get an idea. When you have an idea for a new thing, you start by forming up a minimally viable team. Not a minimally viable product. A minimally viable team might create a product. Has any of you ever, in a room, I'd say for show of hands, we can do that with the participants window, can't we? Or there's sometimes on Zoom there's a feature, where's it gone, for hands to be shown? Yeah, have any of you worked on a team that was overstaffed? I did this a few years ago. Yes, there's a thumb up there from Dan. Anyone else found the thumb icon? You know, if you work on a team that is overstaffed, the team will find work to do. The team do not go to the managers and say, you know what? You've staffed a team of 6 and we only need a team of 3. So can you lay the other 3 off? Can you redeploy them? This never happens. You find work to do. You do something. So we have a minimally viable team. It's the first step towards creating our minimally viable product. And then we want our team to be given a mission. The team aren't given a list of requirements, specifications, features, all that. They're given a mission, because the team contains the skills to deliver and to work out what is needed. If we try and tell the team what they need to deliver beforehand, then we're planning for the team. And somebody's got to do the planning. And who's going to do the planning? Well, somebody's going to spend some money doing that, and you're going to box the team in. We give the team a time box, and we fund that time box. So we very simply say, we've got a minimally viable team of, say, 3 people, and we give them 3 months. And you know what? It's going to cost 3 times 3. 3 people times 3 months. And we fund them for the time box. And we say to them, your mission is to investigate this, to see what we can do, to build a basic product, to test the market, to examine strange new technologies. Do whatever you need to do to move us forward on this mission in this time. The team have business skills, they have technical skills, they're autonomous. Importantly, there's no pre-planning. Now, this sounds absolutely crazy, and this is probably going to be the hardest thing to sell onwards and upwards. Every time you pre-plan, you reduce the anonymity, the autonomy of the team. A plan that says you have a budget to spend $1 million on databases ensures you have a database. A plan that says the team is going to have a UXD and a DBA and 2 business logic developers. You've just decided the architecture. That's Conway's Law. We want this team to be autonomous. We want them to find the best solution possible. If we do any pre-planning, then we've already decided a lot of what the team's going to do in advance. the team's less autonomous. The team don't control their destiny. Their mission, they seek out and find what is needed, and they start building it. That's all within their mission. So this harks back to the idea of dual track agile from Jeff Patton and others, that the team are both discovering what needs to be built and they are delivering it, and they are constantly iterating between those two. So minimally viable team, fully staffed with the skills. And each MVT is an experiment in its own right. It's a bet on the future, or to use financial jargon's terminology, it's an option. We are saying, you know, we think there is a market for a product in this kind of space. We think this type of customer would like a kind of product, and we are going to spend some money on this to investigate it. We're going to take it, we're going to put some money down as a bet, buy an option if you prefer, and say to the team, you've got 3 months to investigate this. Think of it as saying, how much can you afford to lose? Can you afford to lose, say, you know, the £50,000 it will take to fund a team of 3 for 3 months? You know, hopefully you can afford to lose that. If you don't, if you say, I can't afford to lose £50,000, well, what are you going to do? You're probably going to get some part-time BA to investigate it, and that will cost money, and that will that means they're not doing something else. And then at some point you might supplement them with a project manager, and that will steal off other people. And all the time, because you're not concentrating on it, it takes longer to do. So because of cost of delay, the end result is later and you lose money. The aim with an MVT is to generate learning. We find out what works, what doesn't work, what the market might accept, what the technology might be capable of. And let's be honest, most MVT initiatives should fail. If they are all succeeding, then you're not being risky enough. You're not pushing the envelope. You're perhaps preparing the ground too well. The norm is that an MVT will fail because they will investigate many ideas, and most of those ideas, most of those missions won't make sense. I've come across companies that have spent years planning for projects and investigating them and analyzing them, and they never actually get around to building anything because they spend all their time making sure they're building the right thing, that they're not going to be wasting their money. But all that not wasting money wastes money in its own right. So a bit like venture capitalists, we're looking to spend a lot of money on a lot of teams. We expect most of them to fail. A few of them will make sense, a few of them will be good, and a very few will be really big successes, and together they will earn our money back. Managers don't like this because it creates what I've come to call the manager's halting problem. And the problem here is that because in the project model, we are used to projects coming to the end and saying, oh, we need more time, we need more money, we need to continue doing this. Management are very scared to say, do anything, because they are scared that once they have set something in motion, they can't stop it. It will carry on running on and on. So we need to build in a check that says, we stop this. You need to know when to stop, when to finish the experiment, and when to say, oh dear, that didn't work. Let's move on to the next thing. We want to fail fast, fail cheap, learn, salvage, move on to the next thing. And it's important to try lots of things. We want to be looking at lots of ideas, and we want to be discarding them. And in any talk that claims to say anything about management, it's obligatory to have a quote by Peter Drucker. So here you are. No organization which purposefully and systematically abandons the unproductive and obsolete ever wants for opportunities. I think the key word here is systematically. The manager's halting problem exists because once things are set in motion, people's careers are on the line. Somebody has signed off the money for that. And when things don't look good, they give it more money, they give it more time. And when they can no longer sign off more money or more time, it kind of goes upwards. And the person above them says, ooh, I've let my underling sign off £1 million here, and we've got nothing to show for it. Therefore, I better let them sign off another £500,000 in the hope they'll find something. We need a systematic system for sorting through all the opportunities in front of us and discarding those that don't make sense. And equally, for closing down those things that have been running for a long time and no longer make sense. Because while we want our projects, or not our projects, our products to continue, and we want our continuous teams to keep on producing continuously valuable products, there does come a point where you might want to get rid of something. You may have a team which sure is earning a decent profit for the organization, sure can see lots of opportunities in front of it, but maybe that's not where the organization wants to go anymore. Or maybe the organization can take those people and that money and they can deploy them on something else, which is going to make an even larger return. So we need a systematic way of doing this. Peter Drucker also has this great quote: he says, organizations need a discipline that makes them face up to reality. The fail is always the probability of failure is always greater than it will turn out successful. We need to recognize that failures will happen. And it's the old thing about we learn from failure and all of that. But we need to be able to recognize that failure happens and we move on to something else. And we need that discipline. And unfortunately, in a project world, we frequently lose it because of sunk cost fallacy and commitment escalation. So the trick to this is the time box. The time box is the key. It's an old agile technique. We've been used to applying it for days and weeks and so on. Now we need to apply it at a management level. We need to say, look, we've got our minimally viable team. Our minimally viable team is staffed with the people it's staffed with, and they have a time box in which to investigate something. And their mission is to investigate what they can. And at the end of that time box, we need to be really hard, really firm about looking at the results and deciding what we will fund some more and what we are going to close down. And the answer to this problem, you've all seen this before, the answer is actually very simple and it can be a lot of fun. It's simply this. We need to get away from business cases. We need to get away from being nice. We need to get our product owners to walk into the room like the entrepreneurs do on Dragon's Den, and we need to be prepared to grill them and say to them, explain yourselves. Product owners need to be able to walk out of that lift and do this, okay? So we're just going to grill them and say, what have you done? What have you demonstrated? What market do you see? How much do you need? And grill them. And once we've got our minimally viable team, the dragons come along and say, do we kill this? Do we continue it? Or do we grow it? It's really quite simple, but we don't grant endless money. We don't grant money to be spent. We grant a time box. We fund a time box. At the end of the time box, we evaluate. This does, of course, mean that the old success criteria of on feature, on schedule, on budget, on quality is meaningless, because we don't know what we're building. We kind of have a schedule, but it's more like a deadline. We have a budget, but the schedule and the budget aren't success criteria. They are constraints you are in. These are the box you have been put in. Schedule and budget aren't things which you're going to try and meet, but you might go beyond. No, they are things that when they run out, they run out. They're the end of it. So these success criteria don't apply. We need to give a team a goal. We could talk about missions or goals, purpose, or BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals were fashionable a few years ago. I've actually become quite fond of OKRs and objectives and key results, which I kind of surprised myself saying that. I worked with them last year with a client and they turned out to be actually quite successful. So that's the next book in the works, by the way. The goal of the team: investigate, learn, generate, whether it's generate money or save money, whatever it is, give them a goal, let them go and work out how to do this. And you review at a regular interval, and if necessary, you reset. Now, in some ways, this isn't massively different to the way good companies have always done portfolio management. And some of the initial upfront stuff isn't that way to the way some companies have run what's called pre-project phases in the past. But the problem with pre-project phases is they effectively backdate the start of the project to some previous date when someone started on, and they don't have hard dates finishing. They don't have hard budgets. And if you imagine the project's been backdated, but that time before the formal start of the project was never costed or scheduled or anything like that. They was allowed to just run and run. So this isn't, yeah, in many ways, isn't that great a change? It's more change in the way we're thinking about it. So take you through the whole model from the beginning. You get an idea. You create a team. The team are licensed to explore. The team run to the end of their time box, discovering and delivering. They may get a product that satisfies what you need. It takes some actionables, some small systems. At the end of the time box, you review. The dragons look at it, and probably it's game over. Probably at that point, you finish up. However, if it's looking promising, if the team have validated that there's an opportunity there, if they've validated that technology could work here, maybe they've got some simple prototypes or proof of concept up and running, then you grow the team. You give them more money. The team grows a bit and you go around the loop again. You again have some more money, some more funding, some more time box, and you run around again. And you come back, and periodically, every 3 months, every 6 months, whatever it is, you come back and you do a very hard review. And after you've been around the first couple of times, you might decide in the reviews to just keep the team as it is. You might not grow any further. You might leave them as they are. Or you might decide to shrink the team. The team might be successful, but the team's opportunity might be coming to an end, or you might have other priorities, so you might shrink the team. The team and the product are synonymous. I like to think of this as a digital lifecycle model. This is another one of the frustrations in our agile, continuous, no projects world. People still expect the SDLC, the software development lifecycle. We've got this picture of the old jigsaw still sitting there, and people still want, but we aren't following that model anymore. So I think we need a digital lifecycle model. So going back to our teams, in the first instance, they are minimally viable teams, but they're going to grow. And the model here is the amoeba that we all learned about the age 13 in school biology, you know, the single cell animal. An MVT is just a new amoeba. Amoebas are production cells. They grow with time. As far as possible, we keep them independent of other teams. When they start to become dependent on other teams, you get the whole issue of dependency management. When you start to get dependency management, you get increased, well, management. You get increased delays, which aren't the team's issue. They can't focus. Part of the thinking behind the amoebas and the MVTs is to offset Conway's law, which I know people at London CD are familiar with. You know, it's the idea that the organization, particularly the communication paths, have predetermined your architecture. As I said before, if you start with a DBA and a UXD, I guarantee you, you'll have a database. I guarantee you, you'll have a fancy user interface. So we start with a minimal team, perhaps even sub-minimal, you know, less than you think is necessary, and they go off and explore what's possible. And you have regular reviews. You want to avoid commitment escalation, sunk cost fallacy, where you keep pouring good money after bad. Amoeba management, by the way, the idea of amoeba, it was something a few years ago, I kind of, this idea of the amoeba as a role model came into my head. I had a quick Google, and I discovered there's a book on the subject. There's a gentleman whose name I can't pronounce. He's Japanese. He was the founder and then the CEO of the Japanese printer company, Kyocera, if I'm saying it correctly, who we all know as printers. They do loads of other stuff as well. But he actually built the whole company on what he calls amoeba management. And it's exactly this idea. The idea that each amoeba is a mini business unit and you grow them over time. So our amoeba teams, we start small. We might grow the team, add some more people to it. It might get to a point where it gets too big to be one team, and we might split into 2 teams. You may shrink them. You may merge them later on, and you get rid of them. You close them when there's no benefit. And you may have teams within teams. You may have a team blue who are building product blue. But within that, you've got teams working on different aspects of the system, different benefit cases. You know, you've got team cyan and team dark blue and team light blue. They're all part of one larger team, but there might be sub-teams within there. The team is our fundamental unit. We fund the team. We fund the team to build a product. And if the team don't perform or the product they build doesn't perform, then we just withdraw funding. So organizing around the team means that teams are a means of production. They are continuous. So we keep them together. They're stable. That doesn't mean they're static. People will still join teams and people will still leave teams. People will still get ill. People will still retire. Babies come along and people need to take time off. Yeah. Just because they are stable does not mean it's static. In fact, you probably don't want a static team because you get too much group thinking. You wouldn't get variety or diversity. We're funding the teams, not the project. The team is a business unit. We flow the work to the team. Although I talked before about you've got a new idea and you create a new team for that new idea. Quite often you get a new idea and you're going to say, actually, one of our existing teams can take this work. So we can flow the work to that existing team. And what we're doing is we're trying to push authority down to the team. The team are a business unit. The team have responsibility. And with that responsibility comes authority. The team can make their own call on how they do things, why they do things, and what they do. Wow. I'm within a couple of minutes of time. So funding is the question. And funding is about funding teams. Fund is a question. Yes, fund. I said funding is a question at times. There's my typo. Funding is a question of teams. We fund teams. We keep successful teams. We keep successful products. We review them often, and we are ruthless about killing those that don't return value. Teams that either don't return value because their products aren't generating it in the market, or the teams that become dysfunctional. Whew, I can see there's some questions, but I think we're going to take them later on.